recording. Now recording.
Jim Foxes. How are y'all doing today? GMO.
I think the intro with you talking over the music is actually like super slick. So you should have
can we get the music going again?
Yeah.
Just for a
Like,
second.
yeah, welcome everybody. How are you feeling today?
Thanks, Meg. How are you feeling today?
Very heavy.
Heavy. Yeah. I cannot even imagine what that must feel like.
I know. I said to my husband Justin last night, I said, I just wish for one day you could just be me right now. Just one day.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever understand fully. How much longer? What's the ETA?
End of August, early September is kind of the range of when she could be here. So we shall see.
The final countdown. And a
my
perfect
granddaughter-
example of that. Real
My
quick, I have a
granddaughter-
joke and then I'll pass it to you. Sorry, I just wanted to say, perfect example that you can really ask anyone anything in this meeting, even questions around pregnancy and due dates. Okay, that's my joke. Back to you, GK.
My grandson or granddaughter expected the 4th through the 8th or 8th through the 11th.
Of August?
Yes.
Oh, is this your first grandbaby?
My second now, actually.
Oh, that's awesome. Congrats, Grandpa.
Yeah, he's a grandpa. Don't worry about him. He's been a grandpa.
Well, the other one's 3 years old, so let's go with that.
Congrats to you both. The Fox family is growing. All right, well, welcome everybody to another week of our Ask Anyone Anything lunch. Great opportunity to ask any questions that are on your mind. You can ask them publicly. You can submit them in the stage chat in the anonymous forum. I just checked and there were no anonymous questions posted, but I love those anonymous questions. So please, if you've got a question that you want to ask but you don't feel comfortable asking publicly, please submit it and we'll make sure it's asked today.
Actually, have a public one. For those edgy NFTs, is there any way we could do the Foxy stuff in that?
It's a great question. Can we do locked Foxy with hedgy NFTs?
Someday.
Well, first of all, I think we could do that with hedgy. I want to confirm with them though. I think there might have been some challenges of doing rebasing tokens. I know we looked into it. So there's that question of like, can hedgy support rebasing tokens? And then there's the question of which chain we're paying these out on. So right now we're sending all the hedgy NFTs on Gnosis chain. And Foxy, not sure what would happen if we bridged Foxy over to Gnosis chain. I do know that it at the very least wouldn't get any of the rebases, unless someone basically like builds a bridge that supports rebasing tokens, so that when the rebase is actually triggered on the mainnet contract, it either rebases on the other chain, or at the very least, like, now I don't think it would work this way, but if you like came into basically like when you use a bridge, you deposit funds on mainnet into a contract, and then new tokens are minted on the destination chain. So like maybe somehow those, even if the rebase didn't happen on the destination chain, which would be ideal, like at least being able to redeem your tokens on mainnet for more, but I don't think that would work. So yeah, someone needs to figure out how to basically do these rebases across chains. That is one of the trade-offs of having a rebasing token right now. So I like where your head's at, GK. First, I guess the first thing we can do is I can ask Hedgy team right now, just so we can get an answer on whether the rebasing tokens would work on mainnet. But and then if once we hear that, we can decide like, okay, there are the trade-offs of doing the hedgy NFTs on mainnet worth it, because you might get some rebasing, but you're also going to have to pay more gas cost as a recipient. Both the DAO has to pay more gas cost to send it out, but also the recipient would have to pay more gas cost to actually redeem their NFT down the road.
Yeah, and I was actually brought this up as the grandchildren thing. It's like, mint them a NFT and then send it to them now, and then 15 years. And how long can you lock those, by the way, the normal ones?
I don't think there's any limit to how long you can lock it. You just put in a Unix timestamp, and that's the unlock date. So I think infinite. But I don't know if you'd want to lock it forever.
15 years, I'm thinking, the one turns 18 and, then 18 for the other one.
Yeah, it's a great question. Let's get clarity on what's actually technically feasible at this point. I'll get back to you on that one. Any other questions while I send this question over?
I feel out of the loop on WTF Thorchain right now.
Thorchain or Foxchain?
Thorchain.
What do you mean? Like what?
In terms of like functionality in the platform and app.shapeshift and stuff like that.
Does anyone have a good update on Thorchain progress? I know it's been in progress for a while and they are making progress on it.
Like on the product roadmap, it says it was last updated at the end of June, and it's at like a 70% completion for that update. And I just hadn't heard much about it lately.
Yeah, I know that Elma is that's like his main priority right now is wrapping up Thorchain. I think he's been working with Toshi on it as well. So yeah, if it was, that's great to hear. I mean, if it was 70% in June, I can get asked the product to update that. But yeah, that means I would assume we're in the final 20% at this point, getting very close. Which is exciting. That's one of the features that we've definitely been missing in app.shapeshift.com. Very unique feature. Like, I don't know a lot of places where you can trade on Thorchain and 0x and soon Osmosis all in one interface, if any.
Right. And just like seeing this little mini pump right now, I'm like, come on, get us some BTC action on the new platform.
Totally. That's the only reason I ever go use the old legacy platform at this point, is to, if I need to do like a Bitcoin ETH trade. I don't see any engineers. They're probably heads down working on this type of stuff. But yeah, we'll ask product if we can get a more up-to-date update in that doc on all the in-flight features. Lots of stuff is wrapping up though. There's a lot of stuff like such as Thorchain, such as Osmosis that have been in progress. CowSwap, Wallet Connect, been in progress for months, that are finally all kind of coming to completion. That is a big focus right now for product and engineering, is basically wrapping up all of these things in flight. And then we've aligned on some of the next priority milestones, which I'm really excited about, because they're milestones that we can finally, I think, expect to start seeing some product market fit, where ShapeShift is the best way to do a number of different things and that are compelling. Whereas right now it's like, cool, we've got this great Yearn integration, but it's, aside from our UI UX, there's a lot of ways you can deposit directly into Yearn. We don't have the Fox incentives on right now. So yeah, we platforms like Zapper and stuff display more of those DeFi protocols. Actually, they do it better than we do right now. So not like a really compelling reason for a user to come use Yearn, for example, through ShapeShift yet. But those are going, yeah, we're about to have some very compelling features. Plus, what I'm really excited about is that we're getting rid of the excuses that I've heard from others and myself for like why we can't use ShapeShift. I use ShapeShift whenever I can, and the new app really is working great. But there's still some important key features that we're a little bit behind on that we're finally catching up on, namely support for more EVMs. We only support Ethereum mainnet, and a lot of action right now is happening on these other EVM networks. We can't display a lot of the DeFi positions yet. That's one of the priorities we've aligned on, so that when you connect your wallet, you actually will see all of your different DeFi positions. That gets really cool as we implement things like Thorchain. So like, again, I don't know, a single interface where you can go see your Thorchain positions and data, as well as your Ethereum EVM DeFi positions. And the ability to use other dApps. Like oftentimes that's why I'm using MetaMask, is so I can actually connect to other dApps. And with Wallet Connect Part 2, which KeepKey workstream is going to be funding the bounty for, which is awesome. That will like finally solve that. So I'm really glad with where we're at right now in terms of the roadmap, and a lot of the stuff's taken a bit longer, but so many great features finally come into completion, and a really clear path for the next 3 months on features to add that we think can both get us to signs of product market fit, and also just get rid of the excuses that people have to not use ShapeShift. I'm really excited about what the product's going to look like in a few months, and I'm hopeful that once we start seeing that product market fit there, we can turn on the prioritize Fox rewards and incentives, and then we can be the best way to use things like Yearn, because you can earn extra Fox and the DAO can earn revenues, and that's going to be great for marketing. And I'm hopeful just a really organic channel, especially if we put referrals in there, which we could do with that Fox reward program, and give people more Fox if they refer someone who actually completes a revenue generating activity for the DAO. We can figure out what those thresholds are so it's not gameable. But yeah, lots of great stuff coming in the next few months. All right, so we got some new audience members. Welcome, everybody. Any questions or topics anyone wants to bring up publicly?
Or anonymously.
Another question, but I think it might be better suited for like an engineering and product discussion. But I feel like, and I'll go ahead and ask it, but this has been something Mogi and I have chatted about, and I've just been personally wondering about. I know the trend for a very long time and like the preferred method of product releases has always been this like agile direction, as opposed to the waterfall direction, which I don't even know if those terms are outdated at this point. But I'm kind of wondering, like, is that still true? And is it the path? Like, have we thought about ever revisiting, like, potentially looking at our particular path from like a waterfall direction?
I got some thoughts on this, but when I see John unmuted, I'm sure Tyler's got some thoughts. He's deaf and now. But yeah, I would love to hear John's thoughts, and I'm happy to chime in too.
I guess I'm just curious, like, what the motivation of that question is, Meg. Like, why
Sure.
would you see waterfall as potentially advantageous?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's difficult in what we're doing because we're a platform with we're like spinning 1,000 plates at once. But I think just from like a marketing boom standpoint, we haven't really had like a big marketing moment outside of the DAO itself, like that big transition, and like the Fox airdrop, like, because we have all these like little releases that are constantly happening. And I just do see a ton of value in having like a huge splash every once in a while where something is like perfected and ready for market. But I know in the crypto world, I don't know, like, are there any companies out there going the waterfall direction?
Well, I'd say two things to that. One is that having a marketing splash is not at all at odds with agile necessarily. Like, agile and waterfall are both, in my opinion, they're just ways that software development get done. How you release those features and how you market them can be separate from that. But often waterfall is just a much more intensive process that's much less flexible. So in my experience, at least, pretty much almost no software companies do waterfall anymore for the last like 2 decades. And there's a number of reasons for that. I think if your question is more about like getting certain features done and then making marketing splashes with them, I think that's something we could probably work on and improve on. But I don't think waterfall would necessarily help us with that, at least from my perspective.
I would agree, and I think not only have most startups basically adopted this agile method, and I remember we did a really great training basically a while ago at Centralized ShapeShift. It was like a 2-day training on just agile methodology, and we considered things like sprints and stuff, and ultimately had a lot of consensus that agile is the way to go. I think in the DAO, it's even more important that we're agile, especially if we want to be able to do all these bounties and stuff. And I think the agile method's working pretty great for us. I don't think like being agile is slowing down development. I'd be personally concerned about switching to waterfall. I would really want to understand like the compelling arguments that we think that would be better. But yeah, I do agree that regardless, like whether we're releasing features on only once every 2 weeks or once every month, that we can still be flexible with how we market stuff. Yeah. Tyler, do you have any thoughts on agile versus waterfall?
I didn't realize my mic was on, sorry. More of a agile fan than waterfall. I don't really have much to add besides what's just been added.
I wonder if you want to give a quick definition of what you mean by agile and waterfall for those that might not know what you're talking about.
Sure. So I can do this. So waterfall was kind of how a lot of development used to happen. It was kind of the leading method. You'd basically create a scope of work, which would include, typically multiple features, and you wouldn't push any updates to your product until that entire set was done. You typically have it like, it's not necessarily time boxed like the sprint method, but it's more feature boxed. And you basically track, you create all this scope, you assign like points. There's a point system where you basically say like, oh, this feature we estimate is going to be 3 points, and this is a bigger one, so this should be 5 points. And then you basically track, like, as you're completing each of these features, you track, it's called a waterfall because it's descending basically. Like you start with a big chart of all these points stacked on top of each other, and then as you knock pieces out, the number of remaining points decreases, and you can kind of see that over time. On the flip side, the agile method is basically always prioritizing what you think is just the most important piece of work, which can be really valuable in a DAO or in crypto land when things can change rapidly. So like oftentimes, like one of the big downsides of the waterfall is that you commit to oftentimes like months worth of work. Basically, you complete it, you release it, and then you measure results, and you hope that all the things that you prioritized 3 months ago were the right things to prioritize. Whereas with agile, you're always asking like, what is the most important piece of work for us to be working on right now? And as soon as features are completed, you release them. Or in our case, I think we have just like a twice per week release schedule. Is that right, Tyler? And basically we're releasing everything that's ready to ship, which I think is great, especially right now we're in this rapid development environment where new features are being released every week. And we want to get this out as quickly as we
releases
can.
a week. 4 releases a week currently. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's very much like continuous deployment.
And we do have, like, operations is kind of standing as a stopgap right now between engineering and marketing to try and help the fact that marketing succeeds best on having more rigid and set scheduled pre-planned releases, whereas engineering can't count for the unexpected. So we're trying to make it a little bit of a space where we can help review things and keep the communication as close to the ground as possible without disrupting engineering, and helping marketing be a little more agile, but also allow them to kind of release things that are shared with other people on a PR schedule that has 72-hour time locks on it or things like that. So it's a process that's still ongoing. In Notion, you can see the content production roadmap, and that's our current kind of slice up of how we handle things that have been released but are maybe waiting for a schedule to be announced. And it's definitely a process that myself and marketing and engineering have kind of been iterating on and are still looking for feedback. So if you're interested in part of this process, check that out in Notion and chat with us about it.
I appreciate those thoughts, guys. It's just something that I feel like is just assumed and not really discussed much. And as someone who's like on the outskirts in terms of like training and technical knowledge, on the engineering side, I just kind of wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question, but I think the reason that this isn't like a crypto thing, this is just software development. Waterfall's been mostly abandoned by all software companies, and the reason is that it's just not usually as efficient. That doesn't mean that we couldn't, there's many different types of agile. Like, I think a better question to ask personally is like whether the type of agile we're doing or whether that needs tweaking, and that can probably be more efficient. And then there's always the question of how do we align that better with marketing? But waterfall doesn't necessarily lead to better outcomes for marketing, in my opinion. In fact, it often just leads to dates getting missed even worse. And that's why most software companies have abandoned it.
Agreed. But thanks for raising the question. It's a great question. It was a good discussion. Does anyone else have any other thoughts on that or questions that they'd like to raise?
Well, I just wanted to point out, I think it has largely moved away from that, with a lot of companies moving away from perpetual licensing to subscription as a service. So, Autodesk and Adobe and all those, big companies like that, they used to have to cluster releases to do upgrade releases, right? So you'd have to, do a charge for a release, so you had a perpetual license. And then once they moved to subscription as a service, it didn't really matter to cluster those major releases. So I think a lot of this has been guided by moving away from perpetual license. I know we don't deal with that as open source, but I think that was a bigger thing in years past to focus on just scooping up those upgrade purchases.
That's a good point, Griff. I hadn't really considered that, but that makes a lot of sense. I've definitely seen it from just the startup perspective, where in the startup space, the lean methodology has definitely been widely adopted, and a lot of people attribute it for a lot of the innovation that we've seen with startups and the rapid development. It's very much like in startup land, they teach you that it's not great to basically bundle your releases and spend a bunch of time hoping that you're developing the right features. Instead, you should always try to be lean, release stuff basically as quickly as you can, these minimum viable features, and measure results basically and iterate from that. So that's the school that I come from, that strongly recommends the agile approach. All right, any other questions or thoughts? Topics anyone would like to raise? And if we wanted to talk about the different types of agile, I see your comment in stage chat. Really the two main types are Scrum and Kanban. And Scrum is more of that, like, we have sprints and we have assigned points. It's kind of like this waterfall method, but a little bit more agile, basically. Whereas Kanban's awesome. I'm a big fan of Kanban in our current processes, and I don't really see any issues that come from our current process of Kanban that I think would be solved or better handled by the Scrum methodology.
Yeah, some of the
typically more.
Yep, sorry, Willie. Thought you were done. My bad, Willie. Continue.
I'm done. You got.
I was just going to say, maybe part of the conversation that Agile, I'm in that camp as well, but I think maybe part of the conversation is more like, continuous integration, CI, versus maybe having the milestones, or having these epics that, we push for, and then we do these releases differently. But we're in the, we work under trying to get as close as possible to, I believe, continuous integrations, and that is kind of like the model that we push towards with the 4 releases a week, and going from that area.
Yeah, great point, Never Was. I can see benefits from both approaches, the CI/CD. That's what we used to do at ShapeShift. Basically, we were always trying to, as soon as we had a staging environment that was regression free and had new functionality that was independently releasable, we would be pushing it out. Sometimes that meant multiple releases in a day. Sometimes it meant actually fewer than 4 releases per day. So I'm curious. I know Tyler, for instance, has probably more experience with kind of the previous way we were doing it in this newer release cycle. I can definitely see some benefits from the release cycle, and I'm glad that we're doing 4 releases a week. That's pretty great. That's a pretty great rate, whether you're doing CI/CD or you have a set release schedule. Yeah, Tyler, curious, what do you think about how our current process is versus that previous CI/CD that we were doing at ShapeShift?
I would say the biggest change that's happened is from being open source, to be totally honest. Being open source has allowed us to lean into trusting our code a lot more than we previously were able to. Testing every release and pushing to prod every release was part of the process we practiced previously. because we definitely had a more brittle and fragile system that we were playing with, and there were a lot higher chances for unintentional errors, and a lot of those have been removed, and it's really streamlined so much just from being open source. I think that there's also like something procedurally beneficial around the fact of a scheduled release at a specific time, 4 days a week. In our old kind of schedule with it, it was whenever the code was ready. So that sometimes meant late night pushes when developers decided that their work hours were 10 p.m. Or those times where we would push 6, 7, 8 times in a day to make sure that we got it finally right. And it was an intensive test all the things 10, 12 separate times for all of the different environments. So there's definitely a whole bunch of redundancy that's been removed and a whole bunch of trust that we've been able to build in our code and in our processes that do not exist in centralized ShapeShift.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, it definitely feels like an improvement over what we had before. And yeah, I'm always open to those questions and stuff. But I do think I like our current process. It seems really well thought out, and like it seems to be working pretty well. And we're definitely seeing far fewer regressions and prod issues these days than we were previously. So that's a huge win. That used to be that was one of the big challenges we had with our legacy centralized app, was that it was very hard to add new stuff without breaking old stuff. And we spent so much time basically like fixing bugs that new stuff created, and even worse, having to drop everything and focus on prod issues. So I'm glad we're seeing so much fewer of those these days. And props, engineering and ops. All right. Any more thoughts on this topic, or does anyone want to bring up another question or topic?
I was deafened on the first half of this call, probably not muted. Sorry if you guys heard noise. Did we talk at all about the Allfox post that I just made in the forum?
Oh, nice. You got that up? No, we didn't. Can you give us an overview, Tyler?
Yeah. We just had a leadership meeting just before this call. And the idea of prepping for another Allfox caught quite a few workstream leaders by surprise. They felt like they had just done one. And it's bringing up a conversation around the productivity and successfulness of these meetings based on the frequency of them. I know that the goal is that we can have kind of a one shot of all the different work streams, KPIs, and metrics. But we want to find a good balance between being able to inform everyone and not celebrating easy wins, and also making the most productive use of our time in prepping for these calls when they happen. So instead of making just a direct decision by everyone in leadership, we thought it best to poll the rest of the community as well. It's one thing for us to be a contributor who's contributing to these slides and these calls, but it's another thing to maybe be kind of a more just an audience member or a participant that's not actively contributing to a work stream. And we'd love to be able to understand the desire and perspective of how beneficial these calls are, and how we could meet the right frequency for it. So there's a light poll there. We're looking for you to vote on your option of keep it where it is, which is monthly, move it to bi-monthly every other month, or do it quarterly every third month. So this could impact our Allfox at the end of this month, depending on how the votes go. Really looking forward to hearing what the community thinks about our Allfoxes.
What do you guys think? 1 month, or monthly Allfoxes, bi-monthly, or quarterly? And why?
I've always felt quarterly is good for all hands meetings, personally.
Is that what you did at your previous gig, Green Machine?
Yeah, and we had to kind of pull teeth to get the CEO to do that much, but it seemed to be a good period of time to make measurable updates. You know, like when you do them too frequently, it's like, well, we did 2% or whatever. You know, like quarterly gives enough time to pass to see measurable improvements over, you know, or just significant KPI changes that you can talk about. I guess, you know, bi-monthly and quarterly is pretty similar. So I guess either of those.
And I appreciate that insight. And I'm curious, do you think that because we're in crypto, because we're a DAO, do you think things might move faster, or do you still think quarterly should be sufficient?
Yeah, I mean, it is a good point, right? I mean, it's volatile, right? So there'll be a lot of change, but the net change over a couple months might still be the bigger picture, right? Like, we can go up, and then we can go down, and we can go up again. Like if we're doing snapshots more frequently, it's not as big of a, you know, it's not a big picture trend, I guess, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
one thing
we just haven't had a whole lot of good news over the last like 6 months anyway, so maybe that's the lens I'm looking through right now. But to me, monthly seems like too much. So like I would be fine with either bi-monthly or either one, bi-monthly or quarterly.
the only thing that I would say is a little bit different that might, and I'm kind of in your camp too with the bi-monthly type thing. Would skew it is the 6 months terms. So if you only, you know, do it quarterly, you know, you get in 2 of those. Are we able to, you know, see those KPIs and make those adjustments in a 6 months term, effectively versus maybe like a bi-monthly one or something?
That is a good point. If you know, like product is in a 6 month term, so if we basically get one mid-cycle update and then we're done. So that is a good point. I think bi-monthly is probably.
Yeah, but the Allfox isn't about how to make the changes. That's just reporting to the public.
Exactly. So if we get one mid-cycle update on where we are, I'm in agreement with Nebra was that doing just a little bit more so that you get, I guess that would give you 3, or no, I'm sorry, you get 1 and 2. You get more basically. You just get a little bit more frequency to update on where you stand with your KPIs.
What's the difference between Allfox and op sprints for other work streams? I know for me it's not, but others, I think it is.
Well, I think Allfox, we're expecting a little bit more updates on those core metrics, basically, which on WorkStream's behalf takes time for them to gather those metrics. At least currently, it'd be nice if we had kind of a more automated way to do it, which but easier said than done, of course. But to your point, we have these office hours, and I think that's because ideally, I think the only time that work streams are reporting their metrics and their progress shouldn't be during those Allfoxes, especially if we decide to make them quarterly. And that was one of the arguments that came up for why we should maybe make them less frequent, is that we have a lot of these work streams are doing office hours, which is a more deep dive. Basically, it's a whole hour for these work streams to talk about progress and answer questions and stuff. So I'd be fine with either quarterly or bi-monthly personally, but I think I lean towards, as the next step, going for bi-monthly. Lindsay had a good argument for why quarterly could be beneficial, which is just our ability to market it, and hopefully the hypothesis that we might be able to get even more, make a bigger splash and get more of the broader community to view the Allfox if it was a quarterly update. Any thoughts on that? All right, sounds like no strong feelings there. Thanks for getting us started, Tyler. We'll post a link in stage chat so you guys can go way in there. Looks like bi-monthly is leading right now with quarterly number 2. No one has voted for monthly, so seems like it was a good question to ask.
Yeah, if we get kind of unanimous support one way or another, we'll update the community about the next All Fox and when it will be happening.
Sweet. All right. And does that mean that are we going to be likely, if no one votes for monthly, basically, and there's not a lot of support there, canceling the All Fox next week or keeping it?
Wait, sorry, say that again?
So I see we currently have an All Fox scheduled for next week. If we don't get strong support for monthly, is the idea that we would cancel that because we did well last month?
Yeah, that would be the plan. And so far, that seems to be what we're foreshadowing towards.
Agreed. All right. Any other thoughts on that, or questions or topics?
I like the idea of making it a sort of a marketing thing. I don't think we've really, I mean, I guess we've done a little bit, but not a bigger push, you know?
I agree. I think we should try it for the next All Fox. Like, we've got the email access now. You should send an email out about it with a link to the stream, as well as that same link that can be used to watch the recording if they miss it. Do more splash on Twitter. It'd be great if all of us went on Twitter and tweeted something out about it. That can actually have a really big impact. And we've got a solid community and a solid group of attendees that are really incentivized to get the word out there. So I'm hopeful we can, that next All Fox, I would love for all of you guys to retweet ShapeShift's official tweet about the All Fox and see if we can have an impact and get more eyeballs. I do think it's really cool for any of those eyeballs that we can get who actually sit through and watch the All Fox, for them to see firsthand all the progress from these work streams and how we're doing it. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about this, like what makes it difficult as an open source, you know, with everything being transparent, there's no like everything is like an update, right? There's no like new feature announcement. I mean, I know when something goes live, we're saying, hey, it's finally out there, but it sits behind a feature flag and the progress is always transparently disclosed, right? There's no withholding the feature and then release day comes and you deploy it and then you announce the feature. But so I'm wondering if that these All Fox, at least the marketing around it, could be kind of skewed, I don't know, spin doctored, I guess, to feel more like just showing, you know, like sort of completed new features and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good point around how a lot of the stuff that we give there isn't necessarily new news. Yeah, but it is it's the best way for anyone who wants to get, especially if you just want to spend 1 hour for the more broader community members. I think that's another point too, is that right now a lot of the All Fox attendees, at least the live attendees, hard to know who watches the recordings, and I do see that we have double-digit viewership there. But yeah, a lot of the contributors that are attending already have a lot of that context. But it's easy. I've been surprised even by some active contributors and stuff who the All Fox might be the main way that they get their updates from the DAO, because they're so heads down all the time. So I think there's benefits to giving those updates, but yeah, I certainly like the idea is for it to just be updates for internal contributors and stuff, but really the best way for anyone who wants to spend 1 hour to get up to speed with all the happenings in the DAO to get a really great breakdown. All right, we got 20 minutes left. Any questions or topics from anyone about anything? All right, I got one. I got a topic that I think could lead to some interesting discussion. I wanted to it's been a couple rough months with this bear market, and yeah, we're in this interesting transition phase where we don't quite have product market fit and don't necessarily expect that, but are working towards what I believe is a product that needs to exist, where we will see that product market fit in the near term, well within our existing runway. But I wanted to open it up. I wanted to see if anyone, I want to give a safe space for anyone to ask questions or even raise like doubts around our vision, the model that we're building with affiliate revs, how we're DAOing it, just like a really safe space for questions, criticism, feedback, or even just people who might have doubts. I'm more than happy to hear them out and do my best to motivate us all. So does anyone have that? Or are you guys all like me, just very excited about the vision that we're building, a big believer that it needs to exist and that we are in a good position to build the best interface to the decentralized universe? And that the model we have in place with affiliate revs is the right model. And again, not the only model, but I think a really great model where I think we can actually build the best interface there and have, huge revenues basically in a way that doesn't cost fees. No doubt in my mind about the unit economics, basically.
I won't leave you hanging, Willie.
Thank you, Gray.
Yeah, I'm trying to, it's not that I don't have opinions. I'm just trying to think through how to word this. Like, as you've been saying, like we're aligning more and more with a useful tool that we all can use regularly. But I still, like, every day, things that I use every day have a lot of things that just I don't see. Sorry, that's my dog. Jeez, she's a loud dog. Shush. Oh my God, shut up. And I see us heading in that direction. But I guess what I don't see as of yet, and I don't really see on the roadmap either, is like the tools that I use every day. I've kind of shifted from like Zapper to Zerion. Just that more concise summary of everything that's going on. Like Zerion does a really nice job of summarizing all the protocols that I'm involved with, shows my debt positions and all that kind of stuff, like pulls in Gnosis and it pulls in Polygon, pulls in Optimism and all that kind of stuff. And I know we're getting there and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't feel like we're heading in that utility direction. We're focusing more on revenue generation, which I get why. It also feels like the revenue generation is the amount that we need right now is like this impossibility, right? Like the increase in percentage that we need to be profitable just isn't really there. Like we're not going to get those users. So I wonder, as much as revenue is 100% necessary, I wonder about that roadmap in terms of how we just make it 100% useful rather than I've been beating this drum of revenue for weeks now, and I'm totally focused on that as well. But in the end, like I really just want a tool that is all in one that I can use, where I'm going to Aave for something and going to Zerion for something else, and I'd love to see all of that in one place. And I know that's what we talk about as a goal, but it feels like the roadmap over the next maybe 6 to 9 months is really just about revenue generation. And I just worry that if we focus 100% on revenue and we lose that utility, that we're not going to, like, what's really going to save us is getting those numbers way up, right? Like we need to 10x or 20x our user base. And I feel like I worry a little bit about that. So those are my thoughts.
I hear you, Gray. Thank you so much for transparently sharing those candid thoughts. I very much hear you, and I agree with pretty much everything you're saying there. And to your point about Zerion, that was one of the things that I was really happy that we got aligned with product and engineering with the recent roadmap focus, is to display DeFi positions. And Zerion actually has an open source DeFi SDK that we can use to actually detect all of these positions in your wallet or associated with your address that we currently just don't see. Like you connect your wallet to ShapeShift and you see crypto assets that are in your wallet. You see like your Yearn deposits and stuff, but that's pretty much it. And there's a whole other world out there. And so for someone like me who has a bunch of DeFi positions, it's a big missing feature. And I think a lot of the power users, DeFi users that we're trying to attract, it's a big missing feature when they connect their wallet to ShapeShift and they don't see that. And it's not the craziest lift. Like Beard has put together some great mockups for what it can look like to actually display your loans, for instance, your collateral, and your other DeFi positions across a ton of different protocols. Unfortunately, we don't have to build that all ourselves. There's a great open source library we can implement. So I think I think you're absolutely right. Like we have to be a little bit careful, just focusing on things that are going to drive revenues and remembering that, like, okay, well, if we are missing core functionality, it's going to be an uphill battle for every user we attract and to generate revenue with those users. So I think it's a mix. I think, but I ultimately think, yeah, the best, like where we're really going to see revenues is when we build something that has product market fit and is the best, and when we can, like you said, 100x, even 1000x our users, which we should be able to do if we build the best interface, which I think we can. Zapper and Xeron are great, but again, it's just they're only telling the Ethereum story, and there's so much more out there, and there very much is a need for that all-in-one place where you can, like we said earlier, see your Thorchain positions and your Ethereum positions and your positions on other EVMs. And the cool thing is that we really have like we have built so much of the hard pieces already, and it's like now there is some like relatively low-hanging fruit that can help close those gaps, and then after that, it's like we have the bases covered. There's no reason why you wouldn't need to why you couldn't use ShapeShift to do all the things a power DeFi user is doing, and there's other things that no other app offers that are in high demand with these types of users. So I really just like part of me, I want to make sure that we're it's within our reach and within our runway to basically build this interface, this open source, community owned, free, cross chain aggregator of all of these different decentralized protocols that right now already have significant adoption and demand, but especially as crypto explodes and eats the world, if we can be in that position, which I think we can, because we're building towards it with the right first principles. That we can, that the revenues will come. But if we stay too focused on like just the immediate stuff for revenues, I do get a little worried. So I think we're having a good balance. I was really happy with where we landed over the last product roadmap meeting, and we align on a lot of great milestones in the next 3 months, basically, that we can hit, that we expect to close those gaps, make ShapeShift the best at some of these things. And then if we see that organic product market fit, that's where we can add the Fox incentives. And we can be the best way, a better way to use these protocols than Zapper or Xerion, or even going directly to their interfaces by rewarding users who generate revenue for the DAO with Fox. And I get really excited about that. I just think it's such a beautiful model. And that once we get there, we'll start to, I do expect that we will see quite a bit of user growth and an increase in revenues. And we've just already validated so much of this great model that is unique, where we're able to do this in a way that doesn't add fees. So like, when you can make the argument maybe right now that's like, oh, we should, if we really need revenues and stuff, like let's activate fees on 0x trading, or once we have Thorchain implemented, like let's activate fees there. And if we do that, then it's not going to get us to profitability right now. It's not, it will have a slight impact basically on our revenues, but it again makes it much harder for us to attract those users and develop those network effects, which are incredibly powerful and arguably the best competitive advantage in a open source world.
Hey Willie,
Okay.
I had a quick question. I know you're very passionate about that subject, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I had a quick question. I know that we don't have we have a few community members in here, but not a big list. But I wanted to ask the question, or allow anyone that has the question, of like the understanding of capacity and capability versus like obsolescence. And I know there's been a lot of community conversation about fiscal responsibility and our runway and stuff like that. And I definitely talk a lot about capability and capacity, and try to show a distinction between the obsolescence. And I just want to make sure that people can understand where I'm coming from, or if they have questions about that, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, can you give us more of an understanding of what you mean by capability and capacity?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different things moving pieces that work into it, but basically, so understanding that capability and capacity to be able to perform a task, accomplish a task, achieve things, comes in a lot of forms, and there's a lot of different pieces that go into that, whether it's human capital, whether it's the tools that you use, whether it's strategies, whether it's a lot of different moving parts to that, and a lot of times the discussion can be in a lot of corporations, and not limited to this DAO at all, that just removing expense is a very big factor in accomplishing budgets or achieving certain goals when it comes to budgetary and fiscal responsibility. And I think that a lot of times when those discussions or determinations are made, there's a lot left on the table as far as capacity and capability, and what you lose by doing such when you're not taking it from an obsolescence approach. And the obsolescence in this fact, I'm saying, like, something that is no longer deemed necessary or doesn't achieve the goals that are set forth, or is not able to accomplish the task in an effective manner anymore. So I just want to make sure people understand that a lot of times when I throw those words around, I do very much feel obsolescence is a very different subject matter.
Yes, hello everybody. It's been a while. I've been following the discussion. I found it a really very interesting point. I've been talking a lot about people's ability to coordinate. So this is something very important to be reinforced in the organization. Given that this coordination process between people can even mitigate risks, and when well executed, even reduce costs in a creative way. Maybe this comes in line with your idea of capability. I don't know if I get it wrong, but yeah, I just want to add a point of view.
No, thanks, Smith. Definitely, there's a lot of pieces to it. There's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, and maybe coordination is one of that pieces, right?
Oh, definitely. Communication, coordination. There's a lot of different things that, help with, making things more effective and efficient. And yeah, those definitely play a definite role in capacity and capability.
Yeah, it's a great. Thanks for chiming in, Fabio. It's a great question. Never was. I think it's like you said, there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's not just like a clear right answer. I think, like, ideally we're maximizing our capabilities and capacity, but also minimizing spends. And we're in an interesting position right now where just over the past 2 months, the things have changed quite a bit and quite rapidly. Basically, like our runway and just the broader macro market, and just the revenues that we were, for instance, bringing in through bonds before versus what we're bringing in now, and why we had to slow those down because of the impact that they were having. So I think it's tricky, and I think we need to find what the right balance is. Certainly the answer isn't just cut everything, but it's also not just like, well, let's just spend everything either, right? And we also have these macro things to consider, such as like the macro market. And I think it's very important to consider the fact that if we can survive this bear market and keep building at really any capacity, basically show any progress and survive this bear market, then the broader market has like a huge impact on our runway and our ability to survive. So if we can I fully believe that if we can survive through this bear market and show some progress, then by the time the next bull market comes around, we'll be in a great position. We'll be one of the survivors, and we'll emerge much stronger because of the optimizations and stuff that this market environment is encouraging us and motivating us to make. But to your point, we got to make sure, like, ideally we got to figure out like what's the maximum amount that we can grow and the maximum amount of progress we can show, while still making sure that we don't just run out of steam before the bull market comes. So yeah, I mean, overall, the bright side of all of this is that it does force us to get creative. It forces us to really consider every single Doge spin and make sure that we're at least optimizing our spends and spending things on what we think is going to be the most impactful, or what really work streams believe is going to be the most impactful. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing up these discussions and stuff, and it's not sure exactly what the right answer is. I think overall I've been encouraged, and I like that we're in a position where basically each work stream is kind of empowered to and incentivized to basically allocate their own budgets as they best see fit, and make sure that they're considering the broader DAO financial situation and runway and macro market, and making sure that they're putting themselves in a position when their work stream comes up for renewal to be renewed. I am really enjoying seeing that model, and have been encouraged that basically every work stream has come to the conclusion that they do need to make some optimizations to ensure the DAO's sustainability. But it's still, I think, yeah, it's going to be in an even better position basically to justify their expense to the DAO and the ROI that their work streams had when their work streams come up for renewal. Any other thoughts on this, or Nerwood, what do you think about the thoughts that were shared?
Oh yeah, sorry, double muted. No, it's fine. I just wanted to just make sure, sometimes in the writing format in the forum, especially how I like to try to be very take all sides and try to be able to sound off on different positions and stuff. It might not always come directly across to those that skim through stuff and don't have the time to delve in and really read and understand like the different terminology and stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to bring it up, and I do want to. John is here. Yes, I do want to thank John for chiming in and just adding that perspective. I really appreciate his always his opinion and his thoughts on a lot of these different bigger item things that aren't always easy discussions, and a lot of people might not want to join in or feel comfortable joining in just because of the broader scale that it might bring in impact that it's involved.
Agreed. It's been a great discussion today. Thanks everyone for chiming in, and yeah, I hope we can continue using this as just a really safe space to have some of the more difficult conversations, which I'm sure there will be more of. But also hoping that it's been a pretty tough couple months. So yeah, I think we're already starting to see some of the benefits from this, some of the silver lining, and coming out the other side stronger. So appreciate you all, and let's just keep building it where we have, even though times might seem